And we begin this Sunday morning with breaking news from the Middle East and from Washington as Israel's war against Hamas enters a 23rd day. 230 people are now being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, according to a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces. An estimated 30 of them are children. The House passed a resolution supporting Israel and condemning Hamas as soon as my first guest was elected the new Speaker of the House, as he then put the House back to work on appropriations bills funding the government. Joining me right now with the road ahead exclusively in his first Sunday morning interview since being elected Speaker of the House, Republican Congressman Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being here and congratulations.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be with you. I've looked forward to talking with you after this long 3-week episode that we had. But I'll tell you right now, we're energized and back to work.
And tell us what your priorities are. I know that you attended the RJC last night, the Republican Jewish meeting. Tell me about that and what your priorities are now as the newly elected Speaker.
Yeah, that was very important, more than symbolism. As soon as I took the gavel, our work began, and we passed the resolution, as you noted, in strong support of our strong ally and great friend Israel. We had to do that. And then I flew last night to Las Vegas and spoke to the Republican Jewish Coalition, as you noted, to send a further signal that this isn't a priority for our country, and we cannot allow the brutality and the just unspeakable evil that is happening against Israel right now to continue. We're going to stand with our friends.
So what is your response, and have you spoken to the president about his request to tie the money together between Israel and Ukraine?
Well, listen, we're going to move a standalone Israel funding bill this week in the House. I know our colleagues, our Republican colleagues in the Senate have a similar measure. We believe that that is a pressing and urgent need. There are lots of things going on around the world that we have to address, and we will. But right now, what's happening in Israel takes the immediate attention, and I think we've got to separate that and get it through. I believe there'll be bipartisan support for that, and I'm going to push very hard for it.
Do you believe there'll be bipartisan support in the Senate? Will it pass muster there?
I think it will. My intention is not to use this for any partisan political gamesmanship. This is a very serious matter, and we heard reports, firsthand reports last night at that event. They were telling us the terrible things that are happening there, the atrocities. I can't even repeat to you on television some of the things that they told us firsthand that they've seen in Israel at the hands of Hamas and their accomplices. And so we've got to address this now. We should not waste any more time, and I think we'll get it through the House this week.
What should be the response to all of this anti-Semitism we're seeing on colleges' campuses? Has the administration taken that on?
I don't think they've taken a stance on it at all that I've seen, certainly not a strong one, but we should. It's just despicable. We're seeing this happen on college campuses across the country. Our public universities and our private universities used to be the bastion of free speech and debate and respect for opposing views. We don't see that anymore. And even I saw a report early this morning. I only got about 2 hours of sleep last night, but when I saw the headlines on the way out to come visit with you, I saw that there was a physical disturbance at Tulane University in my home state, down in the New Orleans area. We've got to get a handle on this. And there's a lot of measures here in the House and ideas that House members are discussing on how we might, what Congress may do in that space, and we'll be talking about that in earnest in the days ahead.
Speaker Johnson, where are you in terms of funding the government? I know you're getting back to regular order. The Republicans have lost 3 weeks in their efforts in terms of funding government up against this November 17th deadline. Are you expecting to pass a short-term continuing resolution?
Well, let me tell you, our first priority, Maria, is to get the government funding. We have to finish the appropriations process. And I'll tell you, really, we have a great esprit de corps right now amongst House Republicans. Our team is ready. We're working like a well-oiled machine. We passed one of the appropriations bills just a day after I assumed the gavel. That was the energy and water bill. We have 3 more teed up for this next week. We're moving them as quickly as possible and trying to meet that deadline. If indeed we come to November 17th and we're unable to finish that because it's detailed work and it takes some time. We'll look at another stopgap measure, but I think everyone will be on board with that because they understand we're really doing this work. And if we run out of time on the calendar, we may need just a little more to complete it. So the details of that have come together. But I tell you what, I'm very optimistic. I think we're getting our job done, and we're encouraging the Senate to do theirs as well. They've not passed an appropriations bill yet. Looks like they're doing some of that work now. We welcome that, and we're ready to get to the table and negotiate the final terms of all of it.
Will the numbers be lower than what you all agreed to earlier in the year, in the springtime? In terms
the
of
top line numbers
left?
have been a subject of a lot of debate.
Yeah.
Right. The Fiscal Responsibility Act set a particular number. I think there's consensus here that that's what should be worked on. But of course, our objective is to reduce federal spending. As conservatives in the House, that is a top priority of ours because we're haunted by the federal debt. It's $33.6 trillion now, Maria. You address this all the time on your show. We have to keep that in mind always. We want to decrease the woke and weaponized federal government and its apparatuses and reduce federal spending and make sure there's accountability. So all that comes into the equation, all that comes into the debate, and whatever that top line number is, we're going to work very hard to come in beneath it, and you'll see that work happening here over the coming days.
So would you be comfortable then with a short-term funding bill that funds the government, say, until January or perhaps April? Is that something that you're considering?
Well, I've talked to my colleagues about this in the race in the speaker's race. I mentioned that I would favor, for purposes of discussion, to build consensus around, if there indeed has to be a stopgap funding measure, that we would do that until January 15th. And the reason for that is it gets us beyond the end of the year push, and oftentimes the Senate tries to jam the House and force an omnibus spending bill. We're not doing that here anymore. We're having single subject bills in our separate appropriations bills. And so pushing that into January, I think, would assist us in that endeavor. There may be some conditions put on that, perhaps that 1% spending cut across the board instead of becoming effective in April. Maybe we make that January 15th to incentivize the Senate to do their work. But I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on the details of it because people sort of get lost in all of that. But I'll tell you that we're working in earnest to get it done. I think all of our colleagues are at the table right now. Even the toughest fiscal conservatives like myself, people know that we've got to get this job done, and they're ready to do it.
And sir, what about this one-member threshold rule to introduce a motion to vacate? Have you had any progress in reversing that?
Well, again, everyone's here in good faith, Maria, and everyone has told me that rule has to change. Look, I'm not afraid of it because I'm going to openly work it transparently and with every member, and everyone will fully understand what we're doing and why, and I think that's a big part of it. But the rule makes it difficult for any speaker to do their job, and so we'll have some discussions about that. It's not my highest priority. My highest priority is to get this work done and to do it in an open and transparent way, and to, as I said in my speech the night when I took the oath, to decentralize the power from the Speaker's office. I really want to empower our chairman and the committees of jurisdiction and all the talented people in the House and make them more of a part of the big decisions and the situations and the processes here and ensure regular order. Maria, if we do that, we don't have to worry about a motion to vacate, and I'm doing that, working on that every day.
And sir, what about the investigations into the potential Biden family influence peddling, potential bribery? Are you going to allocate the financial resources and human capital needed to do an in-depth investigation? And will an impeachment inquiry turn into an official impeachment?
We'll see, Maria. I worked on the committees of jurisdiction, and judiciary is one of those. I think our chairmen have done an exceptional job. You've spoken to all of them, Jamie Comer and Jim Jordan and Jason Smith, on oversight and judiciary and ways and means. They've continued those investigations even while we were going through the tumult of the speaker's race. They were still working methodically through that. I'm encouraging that. I think we have a constitutional responsibility to follow this truth where it leads. We're the rule of law team. We don't use this for political partisan games like the Democrats have done and did against Donald Trump twice. We are going to follow the law and follow the Constitution. And I think you and I have a suspicion of where that may lead, but we're going to let the evidence speak for itself. And I look forward to rolling that out over the coming days and weeks and letting the American people see exactly why we're taking the next steps and where it's headed.
Are you expecting to subpoena Hunter Biden?
I'm looking at that. I think that desperate times call for desperate measures, and that perhaps is overdue. We've not made a full decision yet. I'm counseling with the attorneys involved on all of this to see what the contours of. I'm an attorney myself, so I speak the language. We're trying to move forward on some of this very aggressively. I think the American people are owed these answers, and I think our suspicions about all this, the evidence that we've gathered so far, as you know, is affirming what many of us feared may be the worst. And, you know, as Jamie Comer likes to say, bank records don't lie. We already have a lot of this evidence. The dots are being connected, and we'll see where it leads.
Mr. Speaker, we'll be watching your leadership. We so appreciate your time this morning. Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Appreciate it.
Speaker Mike Johnson joining us this morning.